Welcome back to the Exposure History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. A Turkish villager stands with his hands clasped in his last prayer while Bulgarian soldiers gather around him. The scene from 1913 comes from the Balkan Wars, when shifting borders brought executions and reprisals against Ottoman Muslim communities. Vietnam, 1966. Exhausted American soldiers sit in a helicopter after a mission, one staring blankly past the camera with darkened eyes. This look became known as the 1,000-yard stare, a sign of the mental strain many troops carried in the war. In war-torn Vukovar, a man dressed as Santa Claus leads a small line of children past a muddy street and a damaged tank. The scene from 1992 during the Croatian War of Independence. Claudia Cardinale pauses on location in Italy in 1968, holding a prop revolver while filming Once Upon a Time in the West. She played Jill McBain, the film's central character in Sergio Leone's Western that later became one of his most praised works. Twins Pip and Flip stand side by side in 1923, promoted in American circuses as the Twins from Yucatan. Born in Mexico and living with a rare condition, they toured widely, becoming some of the best-known sideshow performers of their time. High above Chicago in 1955, acrobat Betty Fox skips rope on a tiny disc platform 20 floors up. Known as a sky dancer with her partner Benny, she used dizzying rooftop stunts like this to promote their stage act. 1960s, St. Augustine, Florida. On a crowded, segregated beach, white women kick and shove a white civil rights protester into the surf for carrying a sign backing black equality. A pair of elderly black former slaves, Jack Riddle and his wife Rosie, sit before a group of hooded Klansmen posing for a staged act of charity. The KKK, trying to soften its image in 1948, hands them a radio for a publicity photo. Early 1900s, Australia shows a group of Aboriginal men sitting in heavy chain gangs at Wyndham Prison, linked by iron collars while a guard stands over them. Many were detained under harsh local laws that restricted movement and criminalized everyday life for indigenous people. In the 1930s, Adolf Hitler signed an autograph for a Catholic nun during a public event. By then, he was a rising Nazi leader, and scenes like this were often used in propaganda to show support from churches and ordinary Germans. 1915, Ottoman Empire. A Turkish official holds bread just out of reach while emaciated Armenian children stretch their arms from the ground. Scenes like this were part of the Armenian genocide, when mass deportations and deliberate starvation killed over 1 million Armenians. A wounded Soviet soldier drags himself through the mud toward German troops after surrendering at Kursk. His face is covered in dirt and blood. In 1945, German General Anton Dosteler stood under guard moments before his execution for war crimes. He was convicted for ordering the shooting of 15 captured American soldiers during a 1944 mission in Italy. High above New York, a crane lowers a section of the new antenna onto the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Installed in 1979, the 362-foot mast boosted TV and radio signals and made the tower more than 1,700 feet tall. In a Brazilian research center, a man stands beside a framed leaf taller than he is, recorded as the largest dicotyledon leaf found in the Amazon. In 1838, Louis Daguerre photographed Paris's Boulevard du Temple with such a long exposure that the busy street vanished. Only one figure stayed still, a man having his shoes polished, unknowingly becoming the first person clearly captured in a photograph. On the Eastern Front in 1942, a German soldier kneels beside an orphaned Russian boy and offers a slice of bread. Surrounded by fallen trees and blankets, the child focuses on the food. In 2003, during the invasion of Iraq, a U.S. serviceman stands in a truck bed packed with seized gold bars. Coalition forces uncovered several hidden caches like this, each bar representing part of the hoarded wealth of Saddam Hussein's regime. 1930s America. Catherine Ma Barker stands in a plain dress and cloche hat, holding a Thompson submachine gun. Linked to the Barker Karpis gang, she was later killed in a 1935 FBI shootout in Florida. A young woman poses in early 1920s French lingerie, a style made of light cotton, lace trim, and loose bloomers. This period was the shift toward simpler undergarments as women embraced more freedom in fashion. Models in the 1950s show off necklines, from wide off-the-shoulder folds to high-draped collars. Each dress frames the face in a different way. Two women pose for a tintype in the 1880s, their dresses tightly fitted and trimmed with lace. Each shows off an elaborate hat piled high with ribbon and flowers. A packed crowd lines the entrance of Charing Cross Station as a Red Cross ambulance carries wounded British soldiers away from the Somme. The scene was on the 8th of July, 1916, showing Londoners watching men return from one of World War I's deadliest battles. Wounded children stand in a Leningrad hospital during the siege in 1942, some with bandaged heads and arms, others on crutches. Many civilians, including thousands of children, were injured by shelling and starvation. Two Russian soldiers stand in a frozen landscape during World War I, wearing early gas masks and heavy coats against the cold. Such masks became important on the Eastern Front after the first chlorine attacks in 1915, saving many from deadly gas. European racetrack, 1950s. A racing car flips through the air, wheels tearing free as the driver is thrown from the open cockpit with no seatbelt to hold him. In this period, many drivers raced unrestrained. A crowd gathers on both sides of the fence as Mexicans and Americans play volleyball across the international line. The friendly match in 1979 turned the Naco border into a shared court. Fans are packed tight against the metal fence at Hillsborough Stadium, faces pressed to the wire as they struggle for space. The crush during the 1989 FA Cup semi-final killed 96 Liverpool supporters and later led to major safety reforms in English football. In 1943, a young Soviet partisan stands for a portrait loaded with weapons, a submachine gun, pistol, and belts of grenades. Partisan units operated behind German lines, sabotaging railways and supplying the Red Army with vital intelligence. Late 1990s, on a beach outside Tripoli, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi talks with Mikhail Kalashnikov, creator of the AK-47 rifle. Kalashnikov visited Libya as an honored guest whose weapon had armed fighters across Africa and the Middle East. A sea of more than 700,000 people fills the rally grounds at Reichserntedankfest in 1934, rows of flags and uniforms stretching to the horizon. These huge gatherings were staged to display Nazi power and unity in the early years of Hitler's rule. Pablo Escobar sits at a table piled with bundles of cash, calmly sorting rubber bands in one of his counting rooms. In 1982, the Medellin cartel was earning millions each day, and Escobar reportedly lost money to rats and mildew. Police officers stand at attention as Kaiser, a German Shepherd police dog, takes his last walk down the station path. The K9 is treated like a fellow officer, receiving a formal salute and escort on his final journey. In January 1918, a mother sits by the fire in war-torn France, holding her child as both wear rough gas hoods. Civilians near the front were issued these masks because German gas shells sometimes drifted into homes far behind the trenches. Pierre Recobre, a French infantry veteran of the First World War, sits in his horizon blue coat during the 1970s, his chest covered in medals. Each decoration signifies a battle survived, from muddy trenches on the Western Front to final victory in 1918. A French soldier sits in a muddy trench, bent over a letter to his wife as shells fall in the distance. Written during the Battle of Verdun in 1916, notes like these were often the only link men had to reality. On a 1960s soundstage, Batman and Robin race across a fake ocean in the Batboat while cameras roll. Sprays of water, painted waves, and a projected backdrop create the chase. In 1977, during a lunch break on the Star Wars set, crew members relax near the Tatooine buildings while Kenny Baker eats inside the R2-D2 shell. The first film's desert scenes were shot in North Africa, used to represent a distant planet. In August 1966, teenagers in Waycross, Georgia, posed at a Beatles burning, holding an album beside a pile of records in flames. These events followed John Lennon's "more popular than Jesus" remark and spread across parts of the American South. During the Blitz in London, civilians turned any safe space into a shelter, even coffin workshops. In this Imperial War Museum photo, women sleep inside unfinished coffins and on the floor, waiting for night air raids to pass above them. During the Cold War, CIA engineers built tiny cameras that could be strapped to pigeons and triggered in flight. The birds flew over targets on normal routes, taking low-level photos far closer than satellites, though many missions failed because pigeons missed the exact sites. Indian soldiers of the 58th Vaughan's Rifles crouch in a trench at Fauquissart, France, 9 August 1915, rifles ready and faces hidden in early hypohelmet gas hoods. These colonial troops from British India fought and endured gas on the Western Front. On 23 September 1957, in Little Rock, Arkansas, journalist Alex Wilson covered the integration of 9 black students at Central High School. An angry white crowd surrounds him, beating and kicking him. He is struck with a brick and almost suffocates on the sidewalk. Drew Barrymore and Mr. T shared the spotlight at the People's Choice Awards in 1983. She was the young star of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, while he was famous for the A-Team, known for his gold chains, mohawk, and larger-than-life screen presence. In 1968, singer-songwriters Joni Mitchell and Mama Cass Elliot shared drinks in Cass's backyard in Los Angeles. Cass, from the Mamas and the Papas, often hosted gatherings for young musicians and helped introduce Joni to the close-knit Laurel Canyon music circle. Inside a damaged Handley Page Halifax bomber, light pours through hundreds of shrapnel holes in the fuselage. This aircraft of No. 614 Squadron RAF survived an anti-aircraft rocket strike during a Pathfinder mission over Central Europe around 1942. On the Eastern Front in Russia, 1915, Russian soldiers show German prisoners how to dance the Cossack steps on the snow. One plays a drum, another an accordion. For a brief time, enemies share music and a famous Russian folk dance. In 1945, actress and singer Marlene Dietrich is lifted by American soldiers so she can kiss a returning serviceman leaning from a ship window. German-born Dietrich had spent the war touring dangerous front lines to perform for Allied troops. Seoul, 1904. Children stand on the old city wall, looking over a maze of dirt streets and tile-roofed homes stretching toward the mountains. This view was the capital just years before Japanese rule reshaped its walls, gates, and neighborhoods. In Canada in 1920, an engineer tested his new concrete pipe by sitting inside while workers stack hundreds of sandbags above him and even right on top. The human load test shows how early builders sometimes trusted inventions with their own lives. On a 1940s beach, early scuba enthusiasts pose in bulky metal helmets connected to surface pumps. Before Jacques Cousteau and Émile Gagnon's aqualung, divers relied on gear like this, learning both swimming and machinery just to explore underwater. In 1903, a logging railroad in Oregon crossed a bridge made entirely from stacked timber. Hundreds of cut logs are locked together to hold the train and crew. Such temporary log trestles were often built quickly, used for a season, then dismantled. Pamela Anderson at the 48th Cannes Film Festival in 1995, wearing a leather lace-up dress while promoting the comic book action film Barbed Wire. Already a global star from Baywatch, she became one of the most photographed faces on the Croisette. On a quiet beach in 1923, the Denishon dancers pose in early modern dance forms. At the center stands Martha Graham, who would later redefine American dance, while silent film star Louise Brooks, second from right, trained here as a young performer. In the 1970s, a man dressed as Sinterklaas, the Belgian and Dutch patron saint who brings gifts to children, arrives at a city cinema on an elephant instead of a horse, drawing curious kids and parents onto the crowded sidewalk. In 1908, a submarine crew lined up on deck in bulky experimental diving suits, each helmet fitted with a single round window. The strange gear let sailors work underwater at shallow depths. In 1941, Finnish engineers hid this road from enemy aircraft by suspending whole trees on cables above the track. From the ground, it looks like a normal forest lane, but from the sky, the road nearly disappeared during the World War II. World War I's front line had an unlikely courier named Mutt, a small dog with YMCA tags and cigarette packs strapped to his back. He ran messages and smokes through shell fire, was wounded twice, and was finally smuggled home to New York by grateful soldiers. French heavy cavalry ride through a Paris boulevard in August 1914, days after the First World War begins. Crowds reach out to them as they pass. Many of these cuirassiers still wear steel breastplates and plumed helmets. In 1942, Hollywood star Mickey Rooney married 19-year-old actress Ava Gardner, both wearing simple suits with white flowers. Rooney was then one of MGM's biggest box office names, while this early marriage came before Gardner rose to major stardom in the late 1940s. In 1967, two cocktail waitresses raced down a New York street, balancing trays of drinks in a playful publicity contest. Their sashes display the bars they represent, and every wobble of the glasses threatens their chance to win the Great Cocktail Waitress Race. Isabella Boyer, born in Paris to an African pastry chef and an English mother, married sewing machine maker Isaac Singer and became one of the richest women of her time. Her face is believed to have inspired the Statue of Liberty in New York. Charles Darrow sits at a table stacked with Monopoly money and deeds, smiling as he takes another $500 bill. The game he sold to Parker Brothers in the 1930s made him rich, even though the core idea came from earlier inventor Lizzie Magie. In the tall grass of a war zone, a young soldier studies a metal lighter with a bullet hole through it. The small object has just stopped around, meant for his chest. Frederick C. Branch stands in uniform as his wife gently pins on his second lieutenant bars, November 10, 1945. He was the first African-American officer in the U.S. Marine Corps, commissioned after training at Montford Point during World War II. In 1991, during Operation Desert Storm, Dolly Parton posed with American soldiers beside a shark-nosed aircraft. The country singer often joined USO-style events and once donated millions of dollars to charities, including support funds for veterans and their families. A Japanese A6M0 dives toward USS Lexington during a 1944 kamikaze attack. The plane hit near the carrier's island and set off a fire that crews put out quickly. 50 sailors were killed, yet Lexington was repaired and sent back into action. In 1985, a young Mike Okuda worked on his first film job, designing computer displays for Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. His graphic style later shaped the LCAR's interfaces and made him one of the key visual designers of the Star Trek universe. In 1970, blues legend Howlin' Wolf played in London, guitar in hand and mouth open mid-note. Born Chester Burnett in Mississippi, he became a giant of Chicago blues and a major influence on many young British rock musicians. In 1961, jazz legend Louis Armstrong played his trumpet for his wife Lucille at the Sphinx in Egypt. The couple were on a State Department tour where Armstrong served as a cultural ambassador, sharing American jazz across Africa and the Middle East. Kurt Cobain sits with his eyes half closed in 1993, a dark burn mark across his forehead from a cigarette. The Nirvana frontman had become the reluctant voice of grunge, known for turning pain, addiction, and chaos into raw, haunting music. The Beatles play the cramped stage of the original Cavern Club in Liverpool, 1962. This small basement club is where their sound formed. They performed there nearly 300 times before global tours, still wearing matching suits and early mop-top haircuts. Penelope Cruz and Salma Hayek sat side by side in the 1990s, both at the start of their rise as international film stars. The two actresses became close friends and would later reunite on screen in the 2006 Western comedy Banditas. 1950s, a couple rides in a Messerschmitt Kabinenroller along a city street. The tiny three-wheeled car, designed by former aircraft engineer Fritz Fend, used a cockpit-style canopy and tandem seats. In 1929, Albert Einstein and Marie Skłodowska-Curie stood quietly by a lakeside, coats pulled against the wind. The two Nobel Prize winners were close friends. Einstein once defended Curie publicly when she was attacked in the press. German-born engineer Ralph H. Baer sits in his workshop in the late 1960s, testing his brown box on a television screen. This experimental system later became the Magnavox Odyssey, recognized as the first commercial home video game console. On a Disney soundstage in 1940, conductor Leopold Stokowski stood on a small platform, leading the Philadelphia Orchestra for Fantasia. Powerful lights throw his silhouette onto a huge screen. Late 1950s, a young U.S. airman, Carlos Chuck Norris, smiles in uniform at Osan Air Base, South Korea. Off-duty, he trained with Korean masters in Tang Soo Do and Judo, earning his first black belts before becoming a film star. Christopher Plummer and James Mason paused between takes on Murder by Decree in 1979, dressed as Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. The film places Holmes in the hunt for Jack the Ripper, and Plummer is one of the few Canadians to play Holmes on screen. In 1996, producer Rick Rubin sat at the mixing desk with Tom Petty and Johnny Cash, shaping tracks for Cash's album Unchained. Petty and his band played on much of the record, which later won a Grammy for Best Country Album. Teenage volunteers of the Ottoman Army marched through the streets in 1915, preparing for the Gallipoli campaign. Many of these boys were still in school when they enlisted, driven by duty and national pride. April 1918, soldiers of Britain's 55th Division, blinded by gas, move in a human chain toward an advanced dressing station, each hand on a comrade's shoulder. Some gas victims later regained sight, but lung and skin injuries could last for years. On 7th May 1945, American and Soviet soldiers crowd together, sharing drinks around a Soviet accordion player as news of Germany's surrender spreads. For a brief moment at the end of World War II, former strangers celebrate as allies. In December 1914, along the Western Front, tired British and German soldiers gathered between the trenches during the Christmas truce. They pose side by side in heavy coats and scarves, sharing cigarettes and jokes for a few hours before war resumes. In 1967, Catherine Switzer, wearing bib 261, became the first woman to officially run the Boston Marathon. Race official Jock Semple tried to drag her off the course, but fellow runners blocked him so she could keep running. In 1956, 68-year-old Barney Fry performed a strength stunt on Muscle Beach, lifting Joan Greenman, Sherry Lee Evans, and Kim Curtis on the boardwalk. Fry was a longtime Muscle Beach regular, known for public shows that mixed acrobatics, fitness, and beach glamour. Jesse Owens steps off a train in London in 1936, sharp in a pinstripe suit with suitcase in hand, days after winning 4 gold medals in Berlin. His victories in the 100 meters, 200 meters, long jump and relay challenged Nazi racial propaganda. In Naples in 1963, young sailors of the Italian training ship Amerigo Vespucci leaned through portholes to kiss and hug their partners on the dock before sailing to Egypt. The tall ship, launched in 1931, still trains Italian naval cadets today. In liberated France in 1944, a young woman accused of helping the Germans sits rigid as locals shave her head in front of a crowd. Thousands of women faced this public humiliation, often for real or suspected relationships with occupying soldiers. First Lieutenant Turney Leonard of the 893rd Tank Destroyer Battalion in 1944. At just 23, he earned the Medal of Honor for directing fire while badly wounded during the Hurtgen forest fighting, actions that cost him his life. In 1978, Muhammad Ali sat barefoot in a quiet hallway at Louisville Gardens, moments before an exhibition bout. The three-time heavyweight champion, born in Louisville as Cassius Clay, often returned here to fight in front of hometown crowds. Sarah Torgov, Christine DeBelle, and Cindy Gerling posed between takes on the set of the summer camp comedy Meatballs in 1978. Filmed in Canada, the movie became a surprise hit and gave Bill Murray his first big film role. Gwendolyn Brooks at her desk in 1950, the year she became the first Black American to win a Pulitzer Prize for poetry. Her work, including Annie Allen, told everyday stories of Black neighborhoods in Chicago with sharp detail and quiet power. In 1933, a teenage John F. Kennedy poses as if dancing with his close friend Lem Billings outside school. Billings would remain one of Kennedy's most trusted companions for decades and even had his own room in the White House. Early 1900s Britain. This Allen and Hanbury's tin sold menthol and cocaine throat pastilles for coughs and sore throats, each lozenge containing cocaine hydrochloride. The firm was later absorbed by Glaxo Laboratories, part of the chain that formed today's GSK. Asaro mudmen from Papua New Guinea pose in their painted bodies and heavy clay masks, each mask shaped into a fierce face. According to local stories, warriors once used these masks to frighten enemies who believed they were spirits. In 1957, Dutch children sat at wooden desks in an open-air classroom, their teacher standing by two blackboards set against trees, and brick open-air schools like this were created across Europe to give pupils fresh air and healthier learning conditions. In 1946, a new father in the hospital nursery collapses with shock as nurses proudly present his newborn triplets through the glass. Triplets were rare at the time, and their safe arrival after the war made headlines in many local papers. Married Khalkha noblewomen in Mongolia, early 1900s, pose in heavy silk robes and towering horn-shaped headpieces. The hairstyle copies a cow's horns, an old Mongol sign of freedom and nomadic life. The Khalkha have been Mongolia's largest subgroup since the 1400s. A masked nurse gently holds a smallpox-stricken child during the 1963 outbreak in Wrocław, Poland. Doctors feared the epidemic could last years and kill thousands, but rapid isolation and vaccination cut it to only 99 confirmed cases and 7 deaths. Gang leader Charlie Berger stands on the gallows in Illinois in 1928 as officials fix the rope and a dense crowd stares up from below. The bootlegger's hanging became the last public execution in the state, performed on a gallows he once donated. November 9, 1989, Berlin. Crowds pack the streets as people from east and west climb the wall, cheering and passing over. A man stands on a broken slab, arms raised in a V sign, hours before citizens begin hammering the barrier down. In the summer of 1960, a swimobile rolled through a New York neighborhood, its truck bed turned into a portable pool. City programs sent these mobile pools into crowded blocks, so children in hot tenements could cool off safely. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on anything.